All I want for the holidays this year is some NBA action. This week, new customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets just for betting $5. An instant dub just for you.
The Lakers have a tough stretch coming up. Boston on Christmas, couple road games against the Timberwolves. So I'm definitely keeping my eye on these lines to see how DraftKings thinks LeBron and them boys are going to stack up.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Jenkins, Jenkins. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Jenkins. The crown is yours. Welcome to Jenkins and Jonez on the Volume Podcast Network. It is Saturday, December 30th, and we are very excited to be joined today by one of our Volume teammates, hoop head extraordinaire, film grinder, Jason Timpf. Jason, welcome to the show.
What's up, boys? I'm excited to talk some basketball. I had a lot of fun last time. I've been looking forward to coming back. This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
You're the guardrails that keep us on track when we get too into eating eggs and stuff like that. Jackson's like, I better bring Timpf on to whip these boys into shape real quick. Talk some hoops.
We had to prove the naysayers on Twitter wrong.
Did you guys pull it off? I have 3 eggs every single day, but the idea of sitting a dozen in a sitting is, that's crazy.
It was light work, dog. We snatched it just in like 10 minutes, bro.
They should be embarrassed how easily we smacked those 12, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I thought they were going to put more of a fight. It was super easy.
Too easy.
John said with how little of a fight the chickens put up, they deserve to be eaten. You know?
No, that's what Tyler said.
My bad.
That's what Tyler said. I said I'm going to call the cops because that was crazy. I'm like, nigga.
No defense.
They deserve to be eaten.
John's over there yelling, get in the stance and compete.
Slap the ground, something, nigga. Pretend like you're trying to play D. God damn.
Did you guys see the PETA, the video where the egg was on the skillet and the egg was making screaming noises?
That motherfucking pig squeal is the funniest shit I ever heard. I dead ass believe that PETA is trolling us because they are too consistently unintentionally funny. They're intentionally funny, dog, and there's no fucking way you can convince me they're not.
Also, you can't make a fried egg not look delicious. I don't care if it's screaming or not. You know what I mean? I want it.
Oh, I like that we're putting it on more stuff too. It's on hamburgers now, man.
Bro, hell
I'm
yeah.
a big
more stuff
egg
for
on a
eggs.
burger guy.
Dude, I'm a big 3 over medium eggs late at night as a snack kind of thing. Like that I enjoy too.
That's how I know you're still in shape, bro. You know what I mean? You're still eating those late night eggs. That's what my wife's family's
no
from Hawaii.
sugar involved in your late night snack?
Oh no, there's sugar involved.
Okay, I was going to say, sheesh.
All right.
I'm a cereal late night snacker. It's a problem.
God bless, bro. Congrats. You're in. I mean, one man to another, you're in tremendous shape for a serial late night snacker.
Those shoulders look amazing.
I'm just getting back out onto the court. I will say though, dude, I'm slow as shit coming back from this Achilles thing, man. I'm slow.
Stay slow,
that is weird.
bro.
I never realized how much it sucks being slow,
time
man.
with that.
How does that spin move feel? I remember one time actually making a spin move and thinking, I'm still spinning? Like, that's when I realized it was over for me.
Yeah, John said he was turning the page on the calendar mid-spin move.
I was mid-spin and I'm like, damn, I'm still spinning, bro. You feel me?
I saw myself.
Like, no, should it be over by now? Like, nigga, I should be at the rim, dog. I'm mid-spin, nigga. I got half a spin left. Crazy.
I was literally complaining about that with the Nerd Sesh guys yesterday. Like, I take a lot of movement jump shots where, like, I'm either sprinting into a shot or, like, hard side steps or turnaround fadeaways. And, like, so I have a pretty big frame. Like, when I have all my shoes on and shit, I'm probably about 230. And so, like, when I'm going into those moves, I like trying to stop all my weight all of a sudden is a huge pain in the ass. And, like, it's going to be, like, I was literally thinking yesterday, I'm like, it's going to be a month or two before I can move again. Oh, God.
Yeah, you got to go slow, brother. Trying to go fast and stop is what gets us into trouble at our
listen to your body.
Exactly.
Listen to your body.
Grind some Jokic tape. You know what I'm saying? Adjust your game. You become like the flat-footed, you know what I'm saying, offensive distributor. You know what I'm saying? So,
are you guys sick of the Jokic, like, I hate being an NBA player act? Did you see that clip from the interview with Michael Porter Jr. yesterday where he was all like, he basically just said, like, I want my kids to not remember me as a basketball player. I'm like, what in the, like, yeah. I love Jokic, for the record. Like, there are a lot of guys in the league that drive me crazy. Embiid drives me crazy watching. Like, Luka sometimes when he gets a little too heliocentric drives me crazy. But, like, man, like, I love watching Jokic play, but this off the court thing is getting out of control. Like, dude, like, you're the best player in the world. We know you love the game. Why are you lying to us like this? Like, I don't understand it.
In a beautiful situation in Denver.
You think he's lying?
I think he's playing up the indifference towards the NBA life. I just don't. There's no way he would be as obsessive and as great as he is if he didn't love the game and appreciate it for what it is. And like, think about it too. Like we didn't even make it to the NBA. Think about how much we revere the NBA as an entity. And like, he doesn't even seem like he likes it. He just wants to go home.
I think you can love hoops and not really enjoy it as much as a job. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot that goes in being in the NBA that, that's not on the basketball court. So like after the game, like doing an interview, like he's probably like, I didn't fall in love with basketball to be doing all of this shit that I have to do outside of this, especially being the best player in the world. You got a lot of responsibilities. So it seems genuine to me. I think like he genuinely is like, I just want to fucking hoop and that's it. It's kind of like the KD shit to me. You know what I mean? That's all KD wants to do is play basketball.
That's fair, but why is he still saying it every other week? Like, we get it. We get it. That's my point.
Yeah.
I think KD and Jokic kind of have a different approach to the game. I think KD, because, the whole thing we've always said about KD is that we need his coaches to save him. He'll play all 48 minutes if you let him, right? But I think Jokic, I can totally see Jokic putting like a Barry Sanders and retiring like at the tail end of his peak, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like one more max contract after this and clocking out. I would not be surprised at all. And meanwhile, KD probably going to be out there till he's like 45 or some shit,
Oh yeah, that's my point. Is like I pick up an entirely different like reverence for the game from KD, and maybe I'm overthinking it. And like again, I'm gonna give Jokic the benefit of the doubt. But like when I saw that quote yesterday, I'm like, dude, are you really doing this again? Are you really laying out for us eloquently how you don't like playing in the NBA? Is that what you're gonna do again? Like, ugh. I
think KD will play basketball regardless of the circumstances. Joker won't. You know what I mean? So they both love the game in a particular way, but KD's just he's locked in regardless of what's happening. Joker's fuck it.
I kind of think all three of you are right on different elements of Jokic. I think that foreign players always have this. We always view them as being a little bit off just because their values are so different from, you know what I mean? The way that they grew up in the sport is so different. Like, I think Jason's right. Like, obviously he's obsessed with basketball to be as good as he is. He's not like, but I do agree. I think there's some element of, I don't know if it's a natural feel from him or if a publicist told him, but clearly he understands that this is the marketing thing about him that has broken through to a national audience. Like clearly, and I think Giannis does the same thing too, where it was like, okay, now I'm going to try an Oreo for the first time, and now I'm going to try a Smith. Like, because when you're new here and it's like, oh, people love this, I think that's sort of natural that you're and publicists can get involved in going, hey, I could sell a TV show of you trying American shit for the first time. Like, all of that stuff factors into it. And I do think Jokic is playing that up to some extent. We know people in the Nuggets organization. That dude likes, like, he enjoys being as good as he is. He does feel slighted when he's not included in, Christmas Day graphics and stuff like that. Like, he does think about that stuff. So I do think he's playing it up to some extent. But I agree with I do think he's not lying when he says when he retires, he's not going to be at everything. You know what I mean? I think that's true for sure.
He's going to disappear. Like, I mean, this is the biggest star the best player in the NBA, and he doesn't have a fucking mansion in LA or Miami in the offseason. That dude goes back home to Serbia. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Counts
to his
high
horses.
School
sweetheart and his horses. You know what I'm saying? Like, when he's done with this shit, we are never going to see that dude again until his fucking Hall of Fame induction, bro. That's it.
Quick follow up. If we fast forward to, I don't know what year it's going to be, but 20 years from now, KD's 55 and he's living in
averaging 7
somewhere in New York. Where, how many times a week is KD playing basketball at age 55? Like, how many times is he going to the pickup games?
8 days a week, dog.
Yeah, I for sure see KD working with players in like an Akeem Olajuwon capacity when he retires, right? Like, I feel like he doesn't want the bullshit that comes with actually dealing with a front office and all that, but he loves the sport so much and he loves the players so much, you know what I'm saying, that I could see him being like a mentor and a tutor to, guys working on their game like in a Olajuwon capacity. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
I mean,
Joker might not pick the basketball up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked about this with KD. They both talked about it publicly, so I feel comfortable speaking on it. But like KD, Peyton Watson with the Nuggets, I covered in high school. I've known him since he was a kid. KD showed up to one of his games when he was a junior in high school before he blew up. Like the dude had like 3 offers at that point. And KD showed up because someone told him this kid's game reminded them of him. So he came to this game. It was like on the road too. He pulled up to the high school game, talked to him afterwards, and from that point has been a great, like, as he got into the USA basketball camp, as he blew up, he's been like a great, like he embraces that aspect even while he's playing, which is not super common, especially for dudes to do. Not like, let me associate with myself with this future superstar, but like, oh, here's a kid I can tell really loves the game, is really cerebral. I can be of use to him, right? Like in genuine service, not just the kind of like, let me co-sign a dude that's going to be famous so that I'm in his highlight reel when he starts his career. You know what I mean?
And he appreciates his role in basketball history. Like he understands his responsibility, which I think is really, really cool. I think he's been so good for the game.
And the KD tree is a very real thing. Like fucking, the two best rookies this year, Chet and Wemby, they're on the KD tree. You have Cat, who said, he grew up emulating KD. Like KD got sons, man, and he embraces them because, he just loves the game so much. So, love to see that from KD.
All right, let's talk some Detroit Pistons basketball. As promised, they lost it so we're recording this Friday morning to drop Saturday. They lost a crazy game, the most electric game between the best and worst teams in basketball that you could ever see in Boston last night. Pistons had a 19-point lead at halftime. A lot of casinos were going to be hurting. That was the biggest bet in the NBA last night, was the Pistons money line to win that game, with the biggest spread of the year against them in favor of the Celtics. And they proceeded to blow that 19-point lead in one quarter. It was tied going to the fourth.
God damn.
Went to overtime. They made some plays. Jaden Ivey, I thought, looked great in the game. And, it just didn't go their way. The Celtics crowd was locked in like it was a game 7. Jackson was talking beforehand. Chris Stapps was like getting the crowd juiced. Like it was the wildest shit I've ever seen. And so I have a commemorative, the Japanese death poem for the episode. And actually I have two because I couldn't pick between the two of them. They're both equally depressing. This is from Teshu, who died on June 6, 1775 at the age of 52. Nikugan o hanarete mitashi hasu no hana. When I leave these eyes of flesh, I wish to see the lotus. And then we have Togyu, who died on August 15, 1749 at the age of 44. Nan no mama nokoru ha mo nashi aki no kaze. When autumn winds blow, not one leaf remains the way it was.
Damn, that's heavy.
That's beautiful.
The Detroit Pistons.
Bro. Whenever poets like mention autumn, I already know like we about to be in for a ride, dog. Like, hey, when poets getting that autumn bag, shit gets different, man. But going back to the Pistons, I'm gonna say I was impressed last night. You can say you don't believe in moral victories or whatever, but hey, these motherfuckers got to get some type of victory. You know what I'm saying? So I'm giving them a moral victory for how they came out last night after such a crushing loss versus Brooklyn, right? Like you had fucking Cade leave it all out there, 41, 9 and 5, I think. And then they come back and they go up they go up by 20 against the best team in the league who hasn't lost at home. They put up a good fight. They take it to OT. Bro, it's like I gained a bit of respect for them because I thought that the Celtics were going to blow the fucking doors off them. I thought they were going to come in there defeated after that, deflating loss that they took. But bro, these motherfuckers are like Stan Marsh from fucking South Park. Like, I ain't hear the bell. Like they still got some fight in them. I am thoroughly impressed, dog.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a narrative surrounding the Pistons that like they have no talent, which is actually completely misplaced in my opinion. It's really just poor management and coaching, in my opinion. They've got good players. As a matter of fact, every young team should be striving to get their core 5, and I think they have 4 of those 5 guys. Like I think Jalen Duren is the right center for them to build around. I think Asar Thompson is like this 3 that is an incredibly agile perimeter defender. He's one of the best perimeter defenders. Yeah, and then Jaden Ivey, like this recent stretch where he's been hooping, it's the first time all season he's consistently gotten good minutes. It's literally the first time. And like if you actually dig into the numbers, like Jaden's been an awesome on the ball creator. All of his like static half court creation stuff has been over a point per possession. And if you actually combine if you look at just the minutes where Cade, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren are on the floor together this season, they have a positive net rating. They literally do. It's come down to injuries. That's been a part of it. For whatever reason, Monty Williams being unwilling to give Jaden Ivey the same long leash that most young teams that have young draft prospects get, and then the bench, man, the incessant playing of just like straight up non-NBA
bench
players.
Straight, he rolls out 5-man rotations of straight bench players, not a starter in the mix at all. Like that's madness, bro.
This is what I wanted to get into with Jason, because I know that you are an analytics guy and a film grinder. Is we've as we've all come to know so much more about the Pistons, you see this like the Pistons beat writers almost screaming onto Twitter, like, thank God the national audience is finally seeing how much of this is mismanagement by Monty Williams. Because I do think there's some clips that go out of like bad turnovers and stupid plays that I think led to the narrative, like you were talking about, like this is just a bunch of JUCO players trying to play in the NBA or something. But there is all this mismanagement, and as Tyler pointed out, I think they had like 8 minutes last night where they had no starters in the game. In a game where they were winning, the Celtics go on a 14-2 run with no timeout from Monty Williams in the third quarter. So, Jason, how much of this is, wow, if you put someone in there who is really trying to win games, maybe this stuff goes different? Like, how much of this do you think is on the way the game's being managed?
Most of it. Because what's so silly about it is, like, if you're going to be bad with a sense of direction. Meaning, like, if you're going to be bad with the intention of accumulating draft assets and by giving your young players super long leashes to figure out how to play together. And, one of the things, like with Killian Hayes, for instance, like, we have a pretty large sample size of Killian Hayes being mostly bad, right? But Jaden Ivey is a young player who's literally in his second season, who you brought off the bench the majority of this year as like a guy that like legitimately was one of the big standouts in summer league for his brief little stint. Like he had this, I was there 2 years ago, literally just was killing everybody for a half a quarter before he sprained his ankle. No one could keep him in front off the dribble. He's been one of the most exciting like dribble drive two guards that we've seen come out of the draft in a long time. They actually have all of these like position groups, they all complement each other actually pretty well, which I think is why they've been good when they've played. It's just been a mismanagement of the rotation. And again, it makes no sense. Like, why would you be bad without a sense of direction? Meaning you're giving the wrong guys long leashes. You're giving the wrong guys tons of minutes. And, I've had a lot of Pistons fans ask, like, what do they need to do to the lineup? What do they need to do to the lineup? What they need to find is a 4 so that they stop playing two bigs. They need to find a 4 that they can play between in the big picture, Asar eventually at the 3, although he's been coming off the bench, and Jalen Duren. The guy that I'd like to see the Pistons go after is Kyle Kuzma. I think he'd be a really, really interesting fit with them as a little bit more of a grown-up, a guy who has a championship pedigree. They don't need a perimeter defender.
Boy.
They don't need a perimeter defender at the 4 because Asar Thompson is such a good perimeter defender. And Jaden Ivey, I think, will be one day once he kind of figures those pieces out. But like, I actually think there's a bright future there. They just like don't underestimate how much like this kind of stuff plays a role. I mean, we're going to talk about the Lakers later. Like the Lakers have a coach that like straight up like just will not start their third best player. Just won't do it. You know what I mean? Like this kind of thing is a thing that happens in the NBA, and it plays a bigger role than you'd think.
That's a good segue into asking you about the Lakers, and this is what this is what I want to do, because I think I remember I've told this story on the pod. I was texting with a friend of mine who's a pitcher in the major leagues, and he was watching a finals game a couple years ago, and the broadcasters mentioned that the coach had called a play, and this dude is he's obviously baseball meathead, major league pitcher for several years. But he's a big basketball fan, always been a big basketball fan. And what he told me was, he texted me, he said, do coaches call plays? And he said, like, he's like, I'm a casual basketball fan. He's like, I watch every playoff game, all this stuff. He's like, I didn't know that they ran plays. I thought they were just out there playing basketball. I do think there's like a fair portion of like basketball fans who they know the players and they don't really think about the coaches or the strategy or 5-man basketball or whatever else, right? These are the people who are like, always think LeBron should force a shot through a triple team, at the end of the game, right? And we know there's a lot of those people out there. So my question to you is, can you put into words for a casual listener how important coaches are, and give me the galaxy brain explanation for why Darvin Ham should be fired? Because on the base level, there's like, always fire the coach. It's always the coach's fault. On the second level, it's like, no. It's so much more about the players, all this other stuff. And then there is the galaxy brain thing of like Monty Williams is fucking the Pistons by playing an all-bench lineup, or Darvin Ham is mismanaging this team by not starting Austin Reeves. So, like, make that case for us on the importance of coaching and why Darvin Ham is failing the Lakers.
So, I think coaching and organization on both ends of the floor is way more important than people realize. I mean, we've seen so many examples of it over the course of even just this season, like silly things like the Bucks being really good defensively forever by running a deep drop coverage with Brook Lopez, and then Adrian Griffin comes in and starts bringing Brook up high to the level of the screen, and they start getting their ass cooked. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. To put it simply, like I think what ends up happening in a lot of cases is coaches have a philosophy. And it's their personal opinion about how to win basketball games. And then there's the roster, which has a specific set of strengths and weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And to me, the best coaches are the ones that can learn how to bridge that gap, inflicting some of their ideology on what the roster strengths and weaknesses are, but at the same time, adjusting their ideology to meet the roster at some point. And the vast majority of issues start from like things like this, like Darvin Ham. I genuinely think I think Darvin Ham is convinced that he can solve all of his problems with defense. And the problem is like my guy Mark Titus with Barstool Sports coined this term, and I'm stealing it from him. But basketball is more art than science, and every time you do something, there's an equal and opposite reaction somewhere else in the roster, right? And that's what's kind of beautiful about basketball is it is a mix of different types of talent that make it work. But Darvin's just like, I'm just going to put all my best defenders out there and see what happens. And it's been funny because those groups have been terrible defensively. Every group this year that has Anthony Davis and LeBron James on the floor with Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, and D'Angelo Russell all on the bench at the same time, those lineups are giving up almost 119 points per 100 possessions. They haven't been getting stops. And it's because when a basketball lineup is playing to its best, it's because they believe in their ability to succeed on both ends of the floor. They see success on both ends of the floor, which causes them to play harder on both ends of the floor. When you can't score, it causes you to deflate. It causes you to play poorly defensively. And I think one of the things that's interesting is there is absolutely no debate that Austin Reeves is the third best Laker in terms of total two-way impact. Hasn't been as good defensively as he was last year, but he still is by far the third best offensive player on the team, and he's been really good, especially as of late, and even in the in-season tournament in some big games again. So there's really only one of two reasons why Darvin Ham is bringing him off the bench. One, he's invested in some sort of sixth man of the year campaign, which I can tell you for a fact from people close to Austin, they could give a shit about that. They just want to win. They don't care about sixth man of the year. That's for Darvin's benefit if that's something that they're doing. And then secondly, he just doesn't think Austin is very good. And that, to me, is where it can be a problem. It's one of those two, and both of them are completely irrational reasons. And, there's multiple elements to it. There's the schematic element to it, which we won't get into now. But, like, you want to build a scheme that actually accentuates your players' strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, one of the things that's worked for the Lakers this year is in order to help weaponize their athleticism, they've been blitzing a lot of ball screens. Not as of late since they went so big and they've been doing switching, but they blitz a lot of ball screens. It's something that accentuates their strengths. We saw that in the in-season tournament, right? But the second piece of it is the rotation. And in my opinion, every lineup needs a certain mix of different basketball skills. You need a skill guard. You need a guard that can bring the ball up the floor and set the offense up, that can run a ball screen and get the ball into position of advantage. Then you need an athlete guard, a guy who can guard the other team's skill guard and apply that ball pressure and stuff like that. Then you need play finishers. You need weak side shooters. You need all these different things. And when you put lineups out there that are strong in one area but weak in others, you get diminishing returns. Because then what ends up happening is the guys who are really good at stuff, they end up stepping on each other's toes in a lot of ways. And then when you have vacancies in other areas. And so it plays a much bigger role than people think. The thing with Darvin Ham in particular, I actually thought he did a good job with adjustments last year in the playoffs. And it very well could have been LeBron, who knows. But I thought they did a decent job. But this year, that lineup, going without your skill guards, most importantly, going without your third best player, saying things in press conferences like, I like Austin around 28 minutes, but then playing Cam Reddish and Torian in the high 30s every single night. Like, to me, it's a it's either stubbornness or it's foolishness, and both of those have no place in a team that's trying to win a championship. And so I don't think Darvin will be fired. Most importantly, I don't think there's a guy that they can replace him with other than just maybe giving the keys to Phil Handy for a season. But I am legitimately concerned about it because
player coach championship agenda.
I'm concerned about it, man. I'm concerned about it just from the standpoint of like Anthony Davis again last night was like, I expect this starting lineup to stick for a while, and it's like, man, like you are sabotaging yourself. This is self-sabotage.
So where are you at with it? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm confused as fuck with the Lakers. The trajectory for me with the Lakers this season was, at the top of the season, I was like, this is a team that, they might make some noise in the postseason, but they're not going anywhere. Then that in-season tournament happened, right? And I was like, okay, I'm buying some Lakers stock because the brand of basketball they were playing, it looked like 2020 championship basketball. It reminded me of that, right? You saw the commitment to defense. You saw them committed to turning defense into offense. You saw them attacking the paint. Bron didn't score outside the paint in the championship game, right? Like that was all the shit that they did when they won the championship, and fucking AD turning into like 98 MJ in the mid range, lightning in the bottle shit right there. But and now I was like, okay, I think you stay pat with this group. You see what they can do. You don't get out there and try to look for a trade, and then they lose 4 straight after the in season tournament. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what the fuck to make out of this team. So where are you at? Do you have any like ideas or suggestions, or do you think that there's a fix with the lineups, or do they need to get out there and get a trade, or what?
So to me, it's really simple. Like we were talking about it with the Pistons, this idea of like filling the 5. It's weird. Basketball is positionless, but it's not role-less. Like you need guys that fill roles. And so, like I said, I like a team with a skill guard, an athlete guard, kind of a taller, slender forward who's more of a perimeter-oriented forward, and then like a big, strong forward. Think like Aaron Gordon as like a perfect example of that type of archetype. And then I want an athletic center that can defend in a bunch of different coverages, right? And so when I look at the Lakers in particular, like they've got a plethora of certain position types, and then they've got weak players playing other position types, right? They have 3 skill guards that are all pretty good, right? Like Austin's pretty good. I'm not as high on D'Lo as everyone else is, but he's a pretty good basketball player. Gabe Vincent literally started for a finals team last year. But they have Cam Reddish starting at the 2. And I know that Darvin Ham is like invested in trying to revamp his career, but the 2 guys they have basically playing the 2 right now are Cam Reddish and Max Christie as like these athlete wings, and they're just not good enough to be starters on a championship team. Looking further down at the 4 spot, that big athletic forward, it's LeBron and Rui Hachimura. They're kind of redundant, and they've been playing Rui Hachimura more in the last few games as they've been doing more switching. But in the big picture, especially as we saw in the postseason, specific matchups that ask Rui to chase over the top of screens, they're going to have trouble in those situations with Rui. And so Rui and D'Lo represent redundancies, and then they have weaknesses at the 2 and 3. And so what's good for the Lakers, there's so much good because Rui is a good player that people will want in a trade. D'Angelo Russell has some value on a discounted deal as a guy who can help run your bench units and is a very good passer who can run pick and roll and do that kind of stuff. They have a first-round draft pick that, because of the Lakers' incompetence, is something that people view as valuable around the league. They have draft assets. So the deal that I've been looking at as of late, I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about this one. So I don't know if you saw yesterday, but Bovada had the favorites to land DeJounte Murray in a trade as the Los Angeles Lakers. And
I saw that.
One of the deals that I saw that I kind of like is like, you know what, D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura and one more of their smaller deals for Capella and DeJounte Murray is super interesting to me because DeJounte Murray represents that athlete guard that can defend at the point of attack the way that Austin can't, but he's also a very good offensive player. The dude's hitting like 55% effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shots this year. I was watching tape on him this morning. He can beat people off the dribble like crazy. Like that dude is a legit dribble drive guy, which is something that Dennis Schroeder brought last year, which was super valuable if you guys remember. Like beating people off the dribble is one of the most important elements to getting a defense in rotation so that you're operating with an advantage instead of kind of like stagnant. You know how like the Lakers kind of look stagnant sometimes? It's because LeBron's the only guy who can beat people off the dribble. And so DeJounte could help with that. He's having a career best year in terms of efficiency and knocking down catch and shoot threes. He's learning how to play off the ball next to Trae Young. I really like that specific fit. And then Clint Capella is a legitimate backup center, as good as Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes have been in spurts. I don't view them as guys that could play significant minutes in a playoff rotation. So I like the idea of having like a legitimate backup center / a guy they could play big with. And then you start to look at it and it's like Austin, skill guard, DeJounte, athlete guard, Torian, kind of slender perimeter oriented forward, LeBron, Anthony Davis. You've got a bench player to come off the bench for Capella. That's where I start to see the Lakers as just more balanced down the roster. And I don't, even if it's not that Atlanta trade, it's just got to be trades that turn those redundancies, D'Lo and Rui, into weaknesses, which is that 2 and 3. Like that's where they need to get a significant upgrade. What do you guys think about DeJounte Murray with the Lakers, though? I'm curious.
I like it. Shit, I'm sold, bro. Like that was a hell of an elevator pitch right there. Yeah. I'm for sure on the side now that you got to shake some shit up and make a trade. I'm for sure on the side of that. And I do like what you said about DeJounte and Clint. I think that would be a very, 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 very good fit for them. So that's something to ponder for sure.
One quick thing too, like there are two things that matter way more than anything else. Anthony Davis looks better than he's looked since 2020, and LeBron James looks better than he's looked since 2020. So like they legit, like last year, Lakers fans would be like, oh, we have 2 top 10 players, and it was like kind of debatable because LeBron after the foot injury just wasn't very good, and Anthony Davis literally couldn't shoot and all these other things. Anthony Davis has made 14 of his last 29 catch and shoot jump shots. He's legitimately looking confident, knocking down that shot. He's been one of the very best post-up players in the league and is having by far his best post-up season since he came to the Lakers. LeBron is shooting his jump shot better than he has in forever. Like they have... I really do think this team has a championship potential if they can organize the rest of the roster. Like there is no other team that brings the top end talent that the Lakers bring to the table. There is no other team that can say definitively, we have 2 top 10 players. So like they have that capability. They just have to play to their strengths, and they have to kind of reorient the roster to where it's more balanced.
What bothers me and troubles me, bridging the 2 comments that you just made, though, is you make a trade to calibrate the roster. I'm not confident because of the lineups that we're really seeing the most out of what the current roster can do. And so the idea of mixing that up, like I think any Lakers fan has been paying attention from Steve Nash forward, right? Like you get a guy who you're excited to get. It does not always equal positive things happening, right? Russell Westbrook, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. I literally just every morning try and black out the period of time when he was a Laker.
The math didn't add up there, though. The math didn't add up there. DeJounte makes more sense.
We all agree that was a bad idea in the moment, right? We all agree?
Yeah, well, I was excited about it, but yes. I mean,
Tyler and Mike thought it was going to work.
X's and O's wise, yes. I mean,
in the moment,
emotionally, I was excited about it.
In the moment, when it first happened, I was very excited. Then the next podcast came, and I'm like, how is this going to work? And they're like, John, shut the fuck up and just enjoy basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nigga, the math's not mathing. So, yeah, go ahead.
I also was still firmly on the side that LeBron knows more about basketball than me, and if he wants the guy, then let's roll with that. Now I feel like the La GM tag, it's taking a bit of a hit, and with the Lakers, so I'm not really necessarily trusting his talent evaluation as much as I did before he went to LA. So that played a part too.
But I think my concern is, do we like? There's too many variables to know. If I knew exactly what this roster was, if Darvin Ham's playing a correct lineup in rotation, then you can say, okay, this lineup is X. And then it's easier to say, if you take these pieces out and put DeJounte Murray in, is Y better than X? I don't know what the value is of X right now, because like Tyler said, like at the end of the in-season tournament, I'm going, I think this team could win a championship. Absolutely. And then right now, they lose those 4 games in a row, and there's some pretty bad basketball in there. And you're like, I just don't know. And so if you're not getting the consistency of the team being close to their ceiling from what the coach is rolling out, it just makes me hesitant. Like, what confidence do I have we're going to get that if you bring DeJounte Murray in? That's my concern.
You're making changes in places where the change may not need to be made. Maybe it's the coaching, regardless of the players you have. You know what I mean? I completely agree with that.
So to be clear, I think 2 things are true. Like I think the Lakers are clearly underachieving this season and should have a better record relative to their talent, and that strategy has been a huge factor there. But I said before training camp that I thought a D'Angelo Russell trade was the safest bet in the NBA this year, and that Rui Hachimura just depended on what kind of player you could get back. And It's literally because these issues have been in place since last year in the postseason, and the lack of having like a really athletic guard that could come face to face with someone like a Christian Brown or a Bruce Brown and not get scared, and not scared is the wrong word, but not be able to hang physically, right? We knew they needed that, right? We knew going in that 3 spot was like a big question mark. Like they can either go in on defense with a guy like Vando, or they can go in on offense with a guy like Rui. Like there's all these different options, but we knew that they were flawed options. And so I always saw this as a train headed towards they're in February going to swap D'Lo at least, if not D'Lo and Rui, for upgrades at the 2 and 3. That to me was like just that's all about what their playoff shortcomings were, which we knew at the Denver series, right? That said, within the scope of this regular season, there's to me it's so simple. You start Austin, you start LeBron and AD. Taurean Prince is shooting the shit out of the basketball. You start him at the 3. You start Vando or Cam at the 2. I would go with Vando because I think Cam is a bad offensive player that thinks he's a good offensive player, and Vando is a bad offensive player that knows he's a bad offensive player. And so I think in general, like I'd rather have Vando not want to shoot and get ignored than Cam get ignored and then like try to run pick and rolls and try to thread the needle and turn the basketball
Vando's
over.
Taking like 10 threes this season or something like that, right? Like,
yeah. And
so
I
he picks
also
his spots
think
for sure.
I think Vando's not playing particularly well because he's still dealing with his injury. He's not quite all the way there. So, like, in the big picture, I think Vando will eventually get his legs underneath him, and I think he will be a better offensive player than he's been. So, I would be like, until February, Austin, Vando, Taurean, LeBron, AD, run our traditional drop coverage, stop the stupid switching thing that they've been doing, be aggressive, start blitzing ball screens again, and lean into the Austin thing. Because by far the dumbest thing about this Austin thing is they don't use that damn lineup at any point in the game except for to start the game and to start the second half. Austin is their closing point guard. Austin is the guy that they use in all these big groups. It's so silly to me because like there's no reason to start the game with a lineup you have no intention of using at any other time other than to start the game. It literally makes no sense.
Well,
it's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen.
And it's a lineup that they've never played. It was like like half the games they've played, they've started a lineup they've never started before as a unit or whatever. And yeah, like we said, this team won the in-season tournament over good teams. They look great during the in-season tournament. Then they lose 4 games in a row with different lineups. And then he's like, the solution is not to go back to what was working, but to roll out a completely new lineup. We're a third of the way into the season. Like it just doesn't make any fucking sense to me, bro.
Well, the lineup they used last year, and by the way, I'm not recommending this lineup because I don't think D'Lo should start. But I do think it's actually really interesting that Austin, D'Lo, Vando, LeBron, AD hasn't played yet. Like it's shocking to me that something that he has evidence that works, at least in some capacity, it hasn't even been attempted this year. It's crazy to me that he thought, Cam, Vando, Taurean, LeBron, AD before he thought anything that worked at previous iterations of the team. Like it's bizarre. And I think I almost wonder if it's a point of pride. He benched Austin and then said he's Ginobili. And now if he puts him back in the starting lineup, he's basically admitting he was wrong about that. And I do think there's a certain pride element. And that's the thing, like even if we go to other coaches around the league, even going to like a guy like Steve Kerr, like you don't think that there's a pride element in how reticent he was to start to tweak the lineup and start to give these young guys some opportunity. Like I think that coaches have a lot of ego and it can get in the way.
Yeah,
it's better to have an ego when you win a championship, man. It's like I do get it, but it's like get the fuck out of your own way, you know. I don't know, guys. You got any more questions, or can I ask Jason some Star Wars questions?
I wanted to ask him that question about KD. You were talking earlier. Yeah. We didn't argue about this. I don't know. I mean, Tyler and Mike are more convinced of how they feel, but to me, you're like basketball Bill Nye. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you take the science of basketball and make it more relatable. You feel me? And so like I wonder how you feel about this. So he's trying to
say you understand and use advanced analytics without making us angry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
clearly you understand the physicality of the actual game and you played it at a high level as well.
You play basketball. You're a hooper, right? But you understand the points of analytics, but you understand the art. Like you just spoke to that. Like I talk about that all the time. I think when we talk about basketball, we're losing the art of basketball. You know what I mean? I think the eye test matters. The beauty of it matters, you know, as well as the analytics. But anyway, So I was wondering, like, we were talking about Steph when KD left. KD was by far the better player than most people in perception, right? KD when KD left the Warriors, right? So Tyler mentioned something where Steph has passed KD. Like Steph is a better basketball player. He's higher in the top 10 than KD is, in his opinion. And so for me, what I thought was interesting was, I think 1 year they were both hurt. It's been 4 or 5 years since they left. 1 year they both were hurt. KD has had a better year every year except for one as far as numbers, and you know what I mean. I think Steph won the chip, obviously, which was a big, and he got the Finals MVP, which is very important, right? With that, which will sway things. But other than that, KD's played great basketball. You know what I'm saying? We talk about him in the playoffs. Last year, averaged 29 a game. You know what I mean? We talking about him like he's been trashed because Booker was the better player, and he averaged. I mean, he looked like the best player in the playoffs at that time period. So for you, I'm wondering, as somebody who hoops, who values hoops and also analytics, I'm wondering how you feel as far as like who's a better player overall at this point. Do you think Steph has surpassed KD as a better player? We all agree that his career is better. You're talking about
in terms of like historical, like because the conversation was like
playing basketball.
That Steph has passed KD for the second player of this era.
No, I Tyler told me. Tyler said up flat out that he thinks Steph is a better basketball player.
Flat out.
Okay. So that's what. Yeah. So we're taking career out.
I'm more on the career, but yeah, for sure.
I mean, career. I don't think this. I'm with Tyler on career. I mean, I think but I think that's circumstantial. I don't know if that has anything that like I think career Jordan is better than Bron, but Bron's a better basketball player to me. So how do you feel about that? KD versus Steph. Who's a better basketball player to you?
Well, that's literally it. There's two different approaches. There's like the in a vacuum approach, which is like, let's just talk skill set. And that gets really complicated because it's like Kevin Durant, when he's locked in defensively as a low man, when he's not guarding the ball screen, but when he's guarding the weak side shooter and he can like step in and kind of be two places at once, he's devastating because he has athletic tools similar to Anthony Davis. Like he's just this big, long forward that can cause a lot of problems. And like he straight up has a ability to inflict his physicality on the game that Steph never could do. Even on the offensive end of the floor, like one of the things that's been a little bit of a weakness for Steph throughout his career is like, and we've seen that we saw it in the Oklahoma City game the other night. Like he can take some really tough step back three or some really tough drifting three, but like it's really difficult for Steph to, in a set situation, like late game, 10 seconds left, to get an easy shot closer to the basket. Whereas with the KD, it's like you're watching him and it's like he can literally catch. Remember when he used to, especially in the early Oklahoma City years, when he would just like catch around the elbow like Dirk, and he would just ISO from there and he hit like a little one leg fadeaway or something. Like KD's athletic tools definitely complicate that discussion. And I would say, I'll just put it this way. I think it's extremely close in a vacuum. And it's really just what you personally value, and so much has to do with what kind of players are surrounding them.
Can I pause that actually just real quick?
Go ahead.
Like their best game, peak physical condition, we're picking teams. KD and Steph are up. Like, who does everyone here pick, KD or Steph, to put on their team?
KD.
Best game?
Yeah.
I think I'd lean KD. Like, do you guys remember
it's
2000?
It's KD, no hesitation for me.
2018 game 4. It was either game 3 or game 4. Like, because LeBron had the 50 in game 1, and that kind of stole the show. But KD had a game, one of the two in Cleveland, that was like one of the best individual basketball games I've ever watched a guy play. It was like a 40-something point triple-double. He was dominating the game defensively. He was like dominating the game on the glass. Yeah. He had a bunch of blocks. He was picking them apart and pick and roll as a passer. Hit the biggest shot of the game at the end. Like
that three ball? Are you talking about that three ball from like 5 feet behind the 3-point line?
It's bothering me that I can't remember exactly which game it was. It was either 3 or 4. But like he had like where I literally watched a game and I was like, you know how I felt after game 1 where I was like, LeBron just played the best game I've ever seen. Like KD entered into that conversation with that type of game. I think KD's ceiling is higher in that regard. That said, like I do, Bill Simmons calls it the championship belt.
Hold on, Tyler. Who are you picking? Just again, like who's on the team?
I'm picking KD, but I still think Steph is the best player, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that just because someone is a bigger matchup nightmare does not make them a better player necessarily, right? Because we've discussed before, like if we were doing an all-time pick your starting 5 for a run, any player at their peak throughout basketball history, I'm taking Shaq first, and I don't think Shaq is the greatest player ever. Like I said, I think he's the biggest mismatch in NBA history, right? So just because I would pick KD in that situation, I don't think that negates what I said about Steph being a better player.
No, it's just
I think
yeah.
I think when we're talking about KD, it's not just like a bigger mismatch. Like he's the best scorer in the history of basketball. You know what I mean? And then he's better defensively too. I think at one point with the Warriors, he's averaging 2 blocks a game or nearly 2 blocks a game. You feel me? So and we talk about Steph as being fooled on the other end. So that's where I'm like, I mean, how I feel about bringing in defense when it comes to like the best basketball players. I mean,
yeah.
but I mean, but for me, I feel like KD is proved. Like to me, KD. I mean, career wise, yes, I get it. But as far as basketball, we're talking about somebody just hooping, like, and that's what we talked about when we talked about the greatest. I think that's why we say LeBron's best because we look at him and he's a better basketball player. I think KD, to me, like I didn't necessarily know, but I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think KD's better, and I mean, and that's I mean, we're picking straws, like I mean, they're so close when we were talking about the top 10. Like 5 through 10, like bro, like you throw them anywhere in that top 10, and I'm not going to really argue with you, but just personally, I don't understand how. That chip was a big deal, you know what I mean? For more so for Steph's career, and that Finals MVP was a big deal for Steph's career. We needed that from Steph. That got him in the top 10 to me. You know what I mean? But I still think when we take away circumstance, when circumstance was the same for both of them, even though that was Steph's team, KD was the better basketball player. And there were moments, we talked about it with the Clippers, I think it was the first round, when they just fed KD. Like, okay, we can't figure this shit out. KD's going to get us a fucking bucket. And he's also better on the defensive end. We're going to give KD the fucking ball. And so, like, when you take circumstance away, I think KD's just proven to be better. And bro, y'all know, like, as much as I've talked shit about Steph, you know what I mean? Like, because I'm a Bron fan, I fucking love Steph. His game is fucking beautiful. I'm a basketball purist. You can't be a basketball purist and not love what you see what Steph's doing that. What Steph's doing, Steph. It's maybe more exciting than anybody I've ever seen when Steph's being Steph. But in basketball, like as a better player, I don't see how we say Steph's better than KD when we saw them both at their peak and KD looked like, bro, there were moments where KD looked better than Bron. Like you talking about that series. I'm like, that series, KD was the best basketball player. And I'd even say 2017 it felt like that, even though Bron averaged a triple-double. It felt like KD was the better basketball player in that series. So I've never – it's hard for me to say Steph, even though I think Steph is top 10 easily, but that's just my personal feeling.
So I disagree about 2017 and 2018 because I do think like when LeBron's job was just so much harder than KD and Steph's. Like
For sure.
I think a lot of the conversations in those 2 years failed to account for the fact that, like, yeah, if you put the second and third best players in the world on the same team against the best player in the world, the two of them will look better and probably win. Like that's just
sure.
what's going to happen. And to your point, we're splitting hairs. Like I think LeBron was clearly and discernibly the best player from 2012 to 2020. But I think from basically 2015 on, it was close. Like it was always close in that regard. Now, like the defense stuff is real. Like, I mean, here's the reality. Like KD, when he wants to be, is one of the best defensive players in the world. It's funny that Luka and the Mavs torched the Suns the other night. I don't know if you guys saw that game. It like literally almost made him quit. And Luka was killing everybody.
Yeah.
Luka gets KD on a switch on the left wing. And literally, like, he tries to make a couple moves on him, and then Luka's like, fuck it, just gets rid of the ball. Like he wanted no parts of KD because like KD legitimately is a problem. And then we can look back and it's like, hey, guess what? Like in the Lakers series last year, the Lakers went out of their way to spam attacking Steph all series long. Like that was a real thing. Going back to 2016, it's like biggest play of the series. We're going at Steph. No one's doing that with KD, and so I do think that's an important element. But the flip side of that is I do think, when you factor in Steph hunting threes, which are a more efficient shot, and all of his work off the ball and how that creates things, easier opportunities for his teammates, I think Steph's clearly a better offensive player, which is what makes it like super close. But the thing is hypotheticals don't really mean anything. Like if I was like, it'd be like if I was like, if I was 6'9", I'd be playing in the NBA. Yeah. Okay, cool. But I'm not 6'9". So like it doesn't make a difference. So like the reality is that over the course of this last, decade and a half, like Steph Curry, more or less, has had a more productive basketball career in terms of winning basketball games. Now, we can dive into the 17 different factors that have manipulated it one way or another, but at the end of the day, I'd rather just be like, hey, we can have a conversation about skill sets with KD and Steph and break it down, or we can talk who gets the championship belt based on who won more games. And that's that term that Bill Simmons coined. And like the reality is like I'm a big believer in respecting the banner. Like Logan, our mutual friend Logan Swam, he always calls me a loyalist to the banner. To me, it's like that to me has to mean something. It has to mean something. And so like I think like it's okay to be like, who's a better all-time basketball player, KD or Steph? Clearly Steph. Who's a better basketball player, KD or Steph? Okay, let's get into it. There's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Can y'all say that there was ever a version of KD that was better than 15-16 Steph?
I think that Steph in 2022 was better than 15-16 Steph. I think one of the things in 15-16 that people don't realize is like Steph was barbecuing a lot of traditional coverages. It really wasn't until the playoffs that you started to see teams consistently blitz Steph. And so, like, I think a big part of that's not to undercut his achievement in that year, but like to me, what makes 2022 Steph a better player is like the league had fully and completely adapted to him, and he was still busting their ass. Like that to me is the difference. But like I go to the point of that question. Like we talked about this earlier. Like KD's best game is better than Steph's best game because he's 7 feet tall. Like it's really not any more complicated than that. Like he can hold it down for you on the glass. He can hold it down for you defensively at the rim. He can hold it down for you defensively on the perimeter. KD has always been an underrated passer. That was a big part of how they won in Houston the other night was they were just like, screw it. Let's give the ball to KD. He literally ran more pick and rolls against Houston than he had in any game all year. And they took the second best home defense in the league in Houston and cooked them and won comfortably. And so like, I think it's always funny because when we talk about the like, I'm sure you guys have hashed this out already, or I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys have, but the whole like, did KD screw up leaving Golden State, and like, is this a failure because now Phoenix looks bad? And it's like Brooklyn was this close. Right. To winning in 2020.
Right.
Like KD went out there after that series. Do you remember when KD after that series was like, I don't care what anybody says. Like we were fatigued. Like, yeah, it's easy to say we would have won, but that's not necessarily true. I entirely disagree. The Nets are beating the Hawks. They're beating the Hawks. And then Kyrie's healthy for the finals, and they're beating the Suns. Like they were this close. Guys, he was so incredible in that playoff run that after the series, when Giannis won and put up big numbers, he got in front of the microphone and was like, that guy's better than me. That's
the best playoff series KD ever played, in my opinion. That series against Milwaukee.
So for me, seeing that, I think KD could have, in any situation Steph's been in, Warriors would still been successful. You know what I mean? I don't think Steph could have done or made that series close as KD did, because Harden had one leg and Kyrie was hurt. You know what I mean? And I think I think a lot of where Steph is good is Steph fits that system great. You know what I mean? And I think like Steph is good at making a good team better. You know what I mean? Like we've talked about that. When they were struggling, Steph struggled. You feel me? But in 2022, like you spoke to, Steph was fucking insane. I think that first half of the season was the best Steph. I think I think some other shit was going on. He got hurt a little bit.
He got hurt, yeah. He messed up his foot.
But that first half of the season was the best Steph. But I don't see them switching and like we talked about winning games. I don't, and this is like we said, this is hypothetical. I don't see them switching and Steph winning those games that KD couldn't win, or making this Suns team better than they are now, or making the Nets team or those Nets teams do things that they didn't do. I just don't see that.
But,
one last piece too, really quickly. Like it's a game of inches. Like if Klay Thompson doesn't get hot in Game 6, how do we look at the Steph KD debate over time? Because
we're talking
through
about
six games, KD was better and the Thunder were going to
Okay,
win.
see,
And then Klay literally went like fucking insane. And
that's
then
where Game 6 Klay began, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
where
then
Game 6 Klay began.
And then Steph was unbelievable in Game 7. Like, to be clear, but it's so funny how perception kind of hinges on these like singular moments in time.
And that's what I'm talking about. But the perception is really interesting, being that one thing can change something so much. And I think that Chip, I mean, at least for Tyler, has switched things, you know what I'm saying, drastically.
I would say that is the feeling
overall.
I don't think that's just Tyler and me. I think that is
I'm just speaking to Tyler because I know Tyler specifically. He says he thinks Steph is a better basketball player. You didn't say that. You said career.
Yeah.
So that's that's what I'm speaking to.
Yeah, I think there's no question Steph has a better career. Like any all-time list that has KD over Steph is just it's going based on personal preference. But I'm not even going to say I think KD's better in a vacuum. I just think it's really, really close. They're fundamentally different players too. That's like the thing that always gets silly in these conversations. Like even when we're talking LeBron and MJ, it's like, oh yeah, well MJ did this better and LeBron did this better. It's like, yeah, no shit, they're entirely different players. They're completely different positions. It's like, of course MJ was a better late game shot creator. That was the one thing he was better than everybody in the world at. But like, there's no question that if you wanted a guy to run an offense for 48 minutes, LeBron's just better at that. He just is. So it's like it's always complicated.
I'm not like cement boot all the way down on Steph. You know what I'm saying? It's extremely close. Like shit, KD could have an amazing postseason.
Y'all said it wasn't close. Y'all said it wasn't close. Y'all said it's not close. Y'all specifically said it wasn't close.
No, all time.
In terms of career,
I think in terms of career, we were saying it wasn't close.
Because again, regardless of what happens from this point, I know what you're going to say. Maybe the Suns win a championship. I don't see that happening, but maybe that happens, right? But regardless of whatever else happens, we're going to get spammed with for the rest of our fucking life. Steph Curry has twice as many 3-pointers made as this next closest player. Like that shit's just gonna be, and that is what the game is now, right? So like those numbers, to me, are a big part of the separation in addition to the 2022 finals. But go ahead.
Yeah, Tim, I was wondering is there a point where that your eye test surpasses what you see analytically? Is there a point where you're like, the numbers don't say it, but this motherfucker's a hooper? You know, I see something. I just wonder where that meets, being you have those two minds.
Well, so I'm actually anti-analytics in a lot of ways, specifically as it pertains to catch-alls. I saw this thing Andy Bailey put out from Bleacher Report put out yesterday, and it was like, this is a ranking of every NBA player based on all the catch-alls averaged together, and it's like Raptor, LeBron, like all those weird metrics. And I literally looked at that and I'm like, this is completely
We put hands and
That's
feet
not
on
basketball.
that.
That's
we
just
put hands
math,
and feet
bro.
on the Raptor
You know,
shit.
right.
We are not pro Raptor.
Bro,
yeah.
Bro.
But so I'll give you an example. Like, so I use the primary data that I use is like possession based and play type based data. So and even that stuff's flawed. So I'll give you an example. Like Anthony Davis, he's getting you 1.14 points per post up, including passes. Now that has factors that go, like, because guess what? He's been posting up the last few games in this dumbass starting lineup, getting triple teamed. And I was literally thinking as I'm watching the Hornets last night, I'm like, man, as long as AD can keep dunking over 3 dudes, I think they're going to be fine. But but what that tells me though, just as a point of data, at least for this Lakers team, like, okay, like when we post up Anthony Davis, we generally get a good shot. We have extensive data that shows that. Then we can look at things like spot up efficiency. So like, okay, this guy gets a spot up opportunity for this guy is worth this many points. A spot up opportunity for this guy is worth this many points. You can look into all these, and those are just 2 examples, but there's so many different pieces of data for play types where it's like, I'm not trying to take this unbelievably complex and beautiful game of basketball and crunch it down into one number, which is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life and is doomed to fail. And I hope those nerds try for all eternity because they're never going to figure it out. I promise you, okay? They will never, ever be able to be like, well, our model tells us that this guy is the best player and this guy's going to win. That'll never happen. Like they're going to fail forever in perpetuity. But there is useful data in there if you know where to look. And to me, like, just like we were talking about with Joel Embiid in the past with foul grifting, like as a competitor, you should look to gain every advantage you can. And so taking advantage of the data, and you should take advantage of the data that's available to you. So like, I'll give you an example of a flaw with an eye test. KD is considered one of the best pull-up shooters in the history of the NBA. So is Steph. But Steph is a monumentally better pull-up shooter because he takes so many pull-up threes that they're just straight up worth more points. So that's an example of an eye test thing where it's like, actually Denver was like, we'll live with KD taking these contested pull-up mid-range jump shots because they're really only worth like 0.94 points per shot, right? Versus, man, if we run drop coverage and we give Steph pull-up threes, that's worth like 1.17 points per shot. That's untenable for our defense, right? So like those are where data can be useful, but I always lean eye test, especially when I'm evaluating players. Like I had DeJounte Murray today. Everyone's like, oh, his rim finishing is down. And it is. But I dug into it this morning and I'm watching the tape and I'm like, but no one can stay in front of the guy. So like, a lot of these missed layups are leading to offensive rebound putbacks for guys like Clint Capella. And I'm like, so like that would be an example of a thing where it's like, if you just looked at it, you're like, oh, DeJounte Murray, he's making, less than 50% of his layups this year, but he's attempting 0.6 of a layup more than he did last year. So he's getting to the rim more frequently and he's consistently beating people off the dribble and engaging the rim protector. So that's an example of a piece of data that actually is kind of misrepresenting the value of what DeJounte Murray brings to the table as a slasher. And so like, to me, they always go hand in hand, but fuck the catch-alls. Like that to me is the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think numbers don't take into account a lot of circumstance and situation. You have to watch the games to really see. I think the eye test is really important. But one thing I thought you brought up, too, was the fact that the game is so beautiful. Why look at it in programming language? It's not the fucking Matrix, bro. Why do you see ones and zeros when you're looking at a game? This is fucking art. Enjoy that. That's not why we fell in love with this shit. Talking about it like it's a math, like long division, whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like I think that analytics are really important, and I really enjoy them. But when we're just talking about them from that standpoint alone, like those catch-alls, like you said, I just think we're losing the essence of why we love the fucking game and why the game is beautiful. But anyway, my bad, Tyler. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I've always said, like, I've always likened advanced analytics to like your GPS, right? Like, I believe that it could be a tool that can help you see things better. Like, there's times where you put some shit in your GPS, you're like, oh shit, this is a shortcut that I never knew about. And then there's times where you put in some shit in your GPS trying to go home, and it's gonna take you like 20 minutes out the way through a fucking $8 toll. You're like, hell no, just get me to the interstate and I got it from here, right? I remember like last year, some people who were going hard for Jokic during that MVP race, they were pointing to certain advanced analytics that said Jokic was a better defender than Embiid, and I was like, come on, man. I was like, let's pump the brakes here, right? Like going back to my GPS, fucking analogy. I'm like, if you're gonna take me to fucking Jokic is a better defender than Embiid turnpike, I'm not going that route, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm not paying that $8 toll. You know what I'm saying? So I love analytics, and like I said, I think they're a useful tool that can help you see the game better. But you have to know when you, like I said, when your GPS is fucking up in certain situations with the analytics.
That's the funniest part about the catch-all thing is like when they see something that like fits their narrative, they're like, holy shit, look at this, Jokic, better defender. But like anytime it doesn't make sense, they're like, oh, well, catch-alls are a flawed system. Like, it's very selective and confirmation biasy with the way that they use that kind of stuff. And again, like I want to be clear because I was being pretty derogatory earlier. There are a lot of analytics professionals out there that are hunting useful data and that make you like Cleaning the Glass, for instance, does a really nice job like sorting into specific. It's like, oh, how about we just take offensive rating of only half court possessions? Because like when you get to the playoffs, like teams are just more locked in transition defense, and they get back and they build a wall. They take away those types of possessions. The game slows down. It's more in the half court. Like that's a useful piece of data, right? Like there's so many different like there's a lot of useful data out there. Like nearest defender data. I find that useful with catch and shoot stuff. Like when one of the reasons why I was excited about Victor Wembanyama is like he shot really poorly last year, but if you like filtered out to like when he got a chance to really set his feet and take his time, he was making them, but like he would always disrupt his energy transfer when guys would be close and contesting and swiping. And so like I feel pretty comfortable that like 5 years from now, Victor's going to be a really good shooter because clearly the touch is there. He struggles shooting contested shots because he gets antsy with his form, right? Like there's so much useful data out there. It's just a lot of people are digging down the wrong holes.
Well,
Sure,
I think
you know, like there's quite a few people in the analytics community who I love. Like Kirk Goldsberry, for instance. I'm a huge fan of his shit because he makes analytics fun. You know what I'm saying? Like so yeah, we're not at all, staking our flag here against the nerds.
For sure.
Using analytics, you're all right. Using analytics as the bumpers on the bowling alley is great. You know what I mean? If I'm going left, throw me a number. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm tweaking. Thank you. You know what I mean? You feel me? But when it's the bowling alley and the beauty is the bumpers. You know what I mean? I think that's where we're going too far.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a good analogy. If I can synthesize the whole conversation around the value of coaches, KD versus Steph, how small these points are that change perception, all this other stuff. Like the limits of statistics to me in every sport are that there's no way to actually quantify physical skill and ability, which are the things that we rank and judge players on, because statistics are defined by coaches' decisions, right? So if you had a player who in 1960 went 10 for 10 in half-court shots, and it just so happened this player actually was the greatest half-court shooter in the history of basketball, would have shot 90% if he was shooting 15 of those. We would never know that unless he ended up on a franchise that completely rewired their offense around letting this dude shoot half-court shots, brought in players to allow him to do that the most efficiently. And I do think when we talk about a KD and a Steph, that's what's so fascinating about Steph. You're talking about someone with a super, super specialized skill set who did develop skills around that, but who's the best shooter of all time and landed in a place that was happy to pay a luxury tax, that hired coaches who valued his skill and built a dynasty around him. That dude could have landed on 25 other franchises and not been Steph Curry. And then we have
don't forget the ankle injury that allowed him to
and,
take
yes.
Right.
And then in KD, you have almost the exact opposite, where you have a dude who, look at the other players in the top 10. They all have a team that they're the guy for that team. They're the guy for a dynasty. They're a guy for an era. And KD is a Sonics, Thunder, Nets, Suns, Warriors. Like, to use the baseball thing, when KD goes into the Hall of Fame, whose hat is he wearing? Right? Like, he's going to the Hall of Fame as a Warrior,
NBA hat, bro. He gonna wear a Rob Lowe NBA hat.
Can we all agree? Can we just say OKC? I feel like it should be OKC.
Yeah,
like,
it should be, but my God, how long ago was that at this point? And no one here thinks he's retiring with the Suns, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be 6 teams ago. But this dude
that'd
just
be dope
happened
if he went
to be
back to OKC. That'd be sick.
It would be so dope.
He's not
but
going
this
back to
dude
OKC.
just happened to be drafted by a Sonics team that was in a city environment that was appealing to him as a young dude who was rich, and then got moved to Oklahoma City. Like, that just so happened to be what happened to this dude. So when he got a chance, oh, wow, structure, I don't have to be the end-all, be-all. The people around me are, with all due respect, a little more mature on the court, maybe, than James Harden or Russell Westbrook. Of course, that was appealing to him.
Great coach,
the stability of the coaching.
Right.
You've seen that they're willing to build teams around, like you talked about, Jason, bridging coach's philosophy to player skill set. Steve Kerr's that guy for this era, right?
Perfect for that.
So, like, of course that appealed to him. And then, of course, so it's just that, but it's the fascinating thing to me because there won't be another player like KD. Like, you get a dude like Giannis, and like he's on a franchise that's like, you want to be the mayor, bro? Like, do you want to be the governor of this state? We'll make sure you're the governor of this state if it'll keep you here, right?
But I think,
and KD is just this dude who, again, like, maybe he goes from the Suns to another team and wins 2 championships in the next 2 years, and that's how he's like. It's a totally unique case in basketball history.
The only place where he would be revered like other players in the top 10 would have been OKC. You know what I mean? But he was playing alongside Westbrook, who thought he was the best player on the court.
And James Harden thought he was the best player, right?
The best player, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so then he goes to the Warriors, and regardless of what the fuck he did on the court, that's Steph's city. They don't give a fuck. Then he goes to the Nets, and like Harden and Kyrie are like the opposite of stability. You know what I mean? And he did the best he could.
That caught a bad break on the timing of the pandemic.
Yeah.
By the way, that Nets team was good. That Nets team was good. It was kicking They were kicking everybody's ass, but Kyrie was in a contract situation where his team wouldn't extend him, and he had no choice to go but to get a trade somewhere where he would get extended. Like he talk about bad luck. I bet you Kyrie and KD in a vacuum would have stayed in Brooklyn.
And also the thing with Steve, why do you have Steve Nash coaching these guys? Why do you have a guy go out and get a bucket coaching? Dude, if you just have some sets, we saw that against the Celtics. Nigga, you need to have some sets. There needs to be a philosophy, dog. The philosophy was just hoop, nigga.
The philosophy was play KD 50 out of 48 minutes.
You feel me?
That's not how offense, bro. Get the ball to Willie, get out the way.
Right, exactly. Give him a decent coach and have that squad, and they probably still win even with the instability of, Kyrie and Harden mentally. You feel me? But yes, you're right. So that's why when I talk about basketball, we got to take career in account. You know what I mean? Of course, we're talking about all-time greats for sure. You feel me? It's important. But if I'm talking to the homies about hoops, I'm not talking about circumstance, bro. I'm talking about fucking hoops.
And a lot of the career
stuff, and that's
stuff
what I was
is,
coming from.
What does the weather look like today?
If I write about it, if I wrote about basketball, if I was still over Yahoo writing about shit, bro, I would, you know what I'm saying? You got to take career in account, right? But if I'm talking to my niggas, you feel me? Bro, I'm talking to my niggas. We talking about hoops.
Right.
So that's where I'm at with it. You feel me? But I agree with everything you said about career.
If we can agree that KD was the best player in the 2021 Eastern Conference semis against the Bucks, and yet Giannis came out of that playoff run as the consensus best player in the world,
right?
Because he hung up 50 in Game 6. So what you really are seeing is
deservedly so.
There's this exactly. There is an obvious fact that the best team wins, not the best player. But when it comes to these conversations, but they
can't ignore the team winning.
It is the team. So no matter what, there's no way to have this conversation without subjectivity. It is baked in automatically. Nikola Jokic, I think all four of us agree Jokic is the best player in the world, right? He literally plays on the perfect basketball team to accentuate his skills. There is a version of this where he's in some shit situation and everyone thinks he's the 7th or 8th best player of the world when he's actually the best. It's very possible that Luka Doncic, if Luka and Tatum swapped places today, they'd probably win the next 2 titles, and literally the Celtics Doncic would be revered as by far the best player in the world. This kind of stuff does play a role. It absolutely does.
All right, before we get out of here, this has been an extraordinary long pod, but it's nice to just talk. But it's been great to just talk.
It's been fun. It's been fun
sure.
basketball talk, man.
But I know, when we have people on, we like to do a little more than just sports stuff. I know you're a big Star Wars guy, both because you've done content around Star Wars, but also I can see the art you have in the backdrop there. Give me your best. It doesn't have to be a movie. It could be a book, a TV show, whatever. What is the best Star Wars thing ever produced to you? And what is the worst, Jason?
Oh, man. Okay, so I'm going to go with the best piece just because I'm going to be weird on purpose here. I'm going to go, there's a book called Darth Plagueis, and it actually, basically what it functions as is a prequel to The Phantom Menace. And essentially, if you guys know, in Revenge... The prequel to the prequel.
The Star Wars Bookiverse has some real bangers out there, though, bro.
Oh yeah,
it's how many Star Wars novels are there? 600 or something like that.
There's a ton, and there's still a ton that I haven't read that I plan on reading. But basically, Revenge of the Sith, Order 66, they overthrow the Jedi. There's an immaculately complex plan involving all these political machinations and military machinations and stuff behind the scenes. In the book, Plagueis does 2 things. It explains that plan in much further detail, little things like why they, how they started the clone army idea and how they actually formed the separatists and why they separated from, they go into specifically why they wanted to secede from the Republic and all this stuff. And Darth Plagueis is this dope Sith Lord that was one of the most powerful people in the galaxy and trained Palpatine to become the guy that he became. And it's a long book. There's tons of dialogue in it, but I just finished it for the second time. And I was like, man, this is my favorite Star Wars book. This is so damn good.
I love it.
Worst, I'll go with
Don't get canceled.
Just because the sequel trilogy is so publicly hated, I'll go a different direction. But they're opening this new High Republic thing, and they're trying to get away from like the Sith Jedi fighting against each other thing. So what they're doing is they're bringing in this new villain that they call the Nihil. Now, has anybody in this Zoom call played a game called Fallout?
I've heard of it.
I'm familiar with it, but have not.
Okay,
yeah.
so Fallout is like it's like a post-nuclear Holocaust type of environment. Like the world is destroyed and like people are like kind of coming back and living. Think like Mad Max kind of.
Yeah.
Well, like
There's it got the cover with the homie with the gas mask on it and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you go from town to town to do your thing, one of the enemies they have you fight are like these little bands of raiders, and they're just like dudes that have like weird masks and stuff on, and then they just kill you and do drugs and do all this other crazy stuff. Well, like Star Wars is building this new universe called the High Republic, which takes place like 300 to 500 years before the Phantom Menace. And the enemy is like a band of raiders. And like it's super boring. And like they're even like, you know how like Thanos like would break down why he wanted to kill half the universe, and you'd be like, this dude's got a point, man. Like you're kind of like there's like a almost like a weird like kind of he's kind of good and bad at the same time kind of thing. That is entirely not the case for this. It's just this stupid band of raiders that like somehow are like conquering the galaxy. I just finished the latest book. It's called The Eye of Darkness, and it was a chore to get through, and was incredibly boring. And just in general, Disney has been like really like hit and miss since they took over.
But they also made Andor. So like that's
and Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's the flip side. All right, Jason, thanks so much for hopping on with us. Obviously, check Jason's show out on the Volume, and we'll have to have you on again soon, brother. Appreciate you.
This was a blast, guys. I really enjoyed talking hoops for over an hour. That was a blast, man.
Yeah. Crazy.
Right.
And it was a compliment. Basketball and Bill Nye was a compliment.
Hey, I sincerely
I love
appreciate
Bill
that.
Nye. I love Bill Nye.
I sincerely appreciate that.